Ithinar's Bloom by H. Jane Harrington. Chapter 31. Tension. You can die with honor. They will write great songs about it, and other men will sing them as they're wenching your woman. Master Kezias. Majesty, while I wholeheartedly agree with Guardian Ithinar that you should obtain self-defense skills, I must advise against this. It is inappropriate and entirely too dangerous, Malachar chastised, flashing Kier a look to chill her innards. It's quite all right. Kier's been training me for many weeks with actual blades, Vaughn assured him. It is reckless, Guardian Ithinar, not to mention dishonorable. I cannot authorize taking a blade against His Majesty, Malachar insisted firmly. The martinet had not even been with them a full day, and he was already issuing orders as though he were still amongst his troops. Kier stood facing Vaughn, their swords drawn in preparation for their daily sword practice. Like Vaughn, Malachar and Scylla were shirtless and sweating in the heat of the morning sun. They had not even begun their routine before Malachar had stopped them, much to Kier's annoyance. "I have to lodge my agreement with Guardian Malachar," Scylla complained. "I do not fancy getting cut myself." "First of all," Kier began, pointing the tip of her blade at Scylla, "these guardian swords are not just a decoration. The gods issued them for His Majesty's protection. They wouldn't have gone through the trouble if they didn't intend for us to use them. You must learn to wield it, Ponytail. Relying solely on your bow to protect Vaughn is reckless, and you're a liability with no other skills. You will join us in our sessions," Kier told the bard firmly. She turned to the larger man. "As for your argument, Malachar..." Vaughn stepped forward and shushed Kier with a wave of his hand. "Guardian Malachar, I appreciate your desire to protect me. These sessions are but another means of protection. At first I was not keen on such training, but it has already saved my life. That we use real weapons in our practice is a way for me to learn in a more realistic combat situation. I cannot develop these skills otherwise." Kier cheered Vaughn silently. After the grumbling he had done in Southport, she was excited to hear him actually touting the training's value. Malachar shook his head. "What if there was an accident, Guardian Ithinar? One slip of your blade could—" "I don't make mistakes. I know where the tip of my weapon is at every moment of every scuffle. If I don't want to cut my adversary, I won't. Slips of my blade do not happen," Kier said, feeling red on the rise. "I do not repudiate your phenomenal swordsmanship, but he is still the Crown Prince, and you are still drawing a blade against him. There is no honor in this," Malachar said firmly. "Then what do you suggest we use? Sticks?" Kier picked up a branch and tossed it to the Guardian, who caught it deftly. He dropped it to the ground at his feet and furrowed his brow disdainfully. The only way to appease the man was to demonstrate Vaughn's capability. "Allow me to make my point," Kier said, winking at Vaughn confidently. She saluted with her sword. When Vaughn returned the gesture, she launched toward him, issuing an array of attacks that they had practiced so often. He countered each one, moving fluidly through the motions as a dancer across a stage. Kier threw in several more challenging thrusts just for good measure, and Vaughn easily knocked them aside. After their brief battle dance was finished, she saluted, and they both turned toward Malachar. Vaughn's eyes shone brightly with pride. "He could not have learned that with dull wood," Kier said. "I am impressed, Your Majesty. Guardian Aurelius gave me the impression that you had no talent for swordsmanship." "I don't, really," Vaughn said, "but I had to learn fast. The shadow mages don't come after me with sticks." "I understand it's not an honorable thing," Kier admitted to Malachar. "Taking a sword against a royal, I mean. But I would much rather be the one to hold that sword against him. The mages won't give him a second try when he misses. It's much more honorable to give him a fighting chance than to assume he'll never need one." Malachar bowed in formal submission. "I suppose I cannot argue with that." "You should take Vaughn as your pupil today, Malachar. He's getting used to my fighting style, and he needs exposure to a new opponent. Besides, I want to smack the skirt chase around a bit." Kier bared a wicked grin at Scylla. "Boorish battle-axe," the Bardian muttered. He held his guardian sword aloft wistfully. "Why did it have to be a sword? A guardian crossbow would have been nice." An hour after they finished sparring, Vaughn found himself sitting on a ridge with Scylla's journal in his lap, staring across the rolling plains of central Macaria. He hastily sketched a picture of the landscape, which was speckled with dozens of small villages, houses, and patches of trees. The Guardians were nearly finished striking the camp and loading their gear onto Malachar's horse. Vaughn was trying to complete the drawing before they set out. He added the final shadows to the underbelly of the clouds, then closed the book. Their practice sessions had been fruitful, with Vaughn learning several new techniques from Malachar. While the Guardian had initially been tentative and apprehensive, he soon began to increase the speed of his attacks, forcing Vaughn to react faster and faster to keep up. Vaughn was happy with his overall performance. Skillio, on the other hand, fared a shade more poorly against Kyr's aggressive teaching style. Vaughn had to chuckle as he remembered being, weeks earlier, in the same situation that the Guardian now found himself. Despite her gruff approach to Skillio's training, however, Kyr did not actually cut him. Vaughn wondered if it was because Skillio was starting off at a higher level than he had, or simply because Kyr felt no need to issue any more punishment than she was already doling out. She had refrained from cutting Skillio physically, but was quick to slice him with her words, and that seemed to have a strong effect. He had shown marked improvement in the last half hour. But Kyr... Now there was another issue that troubled him. Her sharp tongue, which had been slowly dissolving over the last few weeks, had returned overnight due to Malachar's presence. Kyr would not look the man in the eye, even when she was addressing him. Balinar hung heavy on her heart, and she seemed to have sunken into a mild depression since the duel. She was quick to mask it, however. Whenever Vaughn caught her staring sadly into the distance, she would snap a sharp remark at him. Kyr was trying so hard to guard herself from sympathy, but despite her efforts, Vaughn hurt for her even more. What terrible secrets did she safeguard in her heart? He had pieced together some of the details, but he still knew very little about Kyr's actions at Balinar. Malachar would only say that she had done something terrible, and 60 men had perished by her hand. Vaughn hesitated to inquire more. He hoped, that Kyr would confide in him when she was ready. But there was a smoldering tension which hung on the air between her and Malachar, and Vaughn did not know what to do about it. Unrest amongst his guardians was the worst problem they could have, save an attack. He needed his guardians to act as a unit. It was going to be a long trip, in more ways than one. Vaughn sighed deeply, staring at the endless lands to the east. The wetlands seemed so far away, and he wondered if they would ever make it. "It's time to depart, Majesty," Malachar said from behind. Vaughn nodded acknowledgment and rose. "It's so far. I wish we were there now." "I know it seems an eternal journey, but I'll get you there safely," Malachar assured him. "You will? Try we will. This is a team effort, you know," Kyr commented. "I beg your pardon, Guardian Ithinar," Malachar said shortly. "Your guardians will see you safely, Majesty." "Oh, don't mind Kyr, Guardian Malachar," Vaughn said cheerfully. "She's happiest when she's fighting. We haven't had a good adversary in a few weeks, so she's feeling a bit of battle neglect." "That's not entirely true, Majesty," Skillio said, joining them on the ridge. "Guardian Ithinar issued quite a bit of battle on my hide this morning. That should have sated her quite sufficiently." "Why is everyone so wench and formal?" Kyr complained. "We're not at the king's ball. You can drop the Guardian so-and-so. I don't need to be reminded of my title." "There is some manner of respect that is due, Guardian Ithinar. You would do well to remember that," Malachar said curtly. "I respect you all fair enough. Just can't abide redundancy." "Let us away," Malachar said, ignoring the complaint. He grabbed his horse's reins and set a good pace toward the nearest town. Kyr started after him, matching his strides evenly. "Here, Toma, I finished the sketch. It was slightly rushed, but it'll suffice," Vaughn said, handing over the journal. Skillio inspected the drawing and praised it, pointing out the particular features he liked the best. "There's only one thing missing in the drawing," he commented after a moment of scrutiny. "What's that?" "An exquisite specimen of nymph, bathing her curvaceous naked body in the glorious rays of the sun," Skillio said longingly. "Alas, it's not possible. I have to see my subject to draw it," Vaughn said in a jokingly apologetic tone. "Oh, I can see her. She's right there." Skillio began swiping a paw at the air before him, as though trying to catch a mirage. Vaughn chuckled. "We'll find her for you." "I do hope so. I've endured without the company of women for so long that even Kyr is beginning to look appealing." "Don't let her hear you say that. She'd undoubtedly kill you." "At least it would be quick and painless," Skillio sighed. He replaced the book in his bag, and they started after Malachar. Within a half hour they drew near a narrow copse of trees. Malachar led them close to the tree line to provide shade from the hot sun. Vaughn was happy for the cover, as it was several degrees cooler than the open fields. Suddenly, Kyr stopped and tensed. Her hand reached up to draw the hilt of her guardian sword, which was strapped to her back. "Kyr?" Vaughn probed. Bloody cloakers, she breathed. Malachar dropped the reins and drew his own sword as Skilio readied an arrow. "Heartfelt greetings, your majesty," a voice called. It seemed to emanate from the very shadows themselves. Keir stepped back toward Vaughn, shielding him with her body. Malachar and Skilio followed suit. "Who speaks?" Vaughn called. "I am High Priest Galvatine," the voice replied coolly. "I believe you know of me.